This podcast is intended for a mature audience. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome back to Legend of the Bones. Following in the footsteps of giants, Legend of the Bones is a chimera. A mix of old-school tabletop RPG and dark fantasy storytelling. As its name might suggest, in Legend of the Bones the dice rule. There'll be no rerolls, no fudging the dice, no metacurrency. The roll of the bones will determine the character's destiny, and no one will be spared their fate. None shall escape the destiny of bone. Last time on Legend of the Bones. Having safely returned to Farfell, the companions took a measure of well-earned rest, seeing to repairs and gathering supplies for the road ahead. On the second night of their sojourn, an unseen watcher lingered in the darkness beyond the inn, observing Valen and Lena while the lovers stood together at their window. The following day, Lena withdrew into meditation, seeking relief from the horrors she had endured in Penmalkeen. With Lord Chuok's generous offer of horses from his personal stables to hasten their journey to Innis Myton, Beric and Talion turned their attention to selecting worthy mounts. Meanwhile, Valen and Eadith walked the bustling streets in search of supplies. Amid the clamour of the market, both mages felt the subtle, unmistakable presence of another who possessed the sight. The market-goers began to move in a strange, feverish way. They swarmed to food stalls, clawing at goods, buying or stealing what they could, and devouring it with unnatural hunger. Through the chaos, Eadith spotted a lone woman standing in a shadowed alley across the square. She watched them intently, and though they had never met, Valen knew her at once. She was Lamorna, the keeper of the Eye of Selethra. Acknowledging them, Lamorna put her hand to something concealed beneath her tunic, and spoke an unknown incantation. In an instant, the spell over the crowd was shattered. The frenzy subsided, leaving those affected seemingly unaware of what had passed. Valen and Eadith forced their way through the masses, but when they reached the alley, Lamorna was gone. They gave chase, as Lamorna lured them onwards, until they came to a dilapidated building in an abandoned part of town. Eadith recognized the building as Valerian in origin, a relic of a lost empire, and being a bathhouse long fallen into ruin. They entered, passing room by room, until they came upon a chamber warmed by a natural hot spring, a pool laying at its heart. And there, waiting for them in the water, was Lamorna. Chapter 75, Part 1. Day 67. Late afternoon. Party status. Valen, 22 out of 22 hit points. Eadith, 16 out of 16 hit points. Spells available. Valen has memorized Charm Animal, Push, Shield, Soothe, Entangle, Revive, Clairvoyance, Ignite, Unseal, and Dragon's Breath. Eadith has memorized Flame, Sleep, Camouflage, Knock, and Frostbite. The air within the chamber was thick with clinging humidity and the sweet aroma of wild rose. Steam coiled endlessly from the petal-scattered pool and the narrow vents set into the tiled floor, drifting upwards in lazy tendrils. A wide circular window high up on the far wall, that once would have bathed the chamber in natural light, was boarded up, the remnants of its shattered glass standing like jagged teeth. Instead, a soft golden glow spilled from a pair of bronze floor-standing braziers. their flames flickering and wavering as if struggling for breath in the damp air. That warmth contended with the cold, pale radiance of the moonstone clasped in Valen's hand. The two lights combined in uneasy harmony to cast deep, shifting shadows across the carved contours of the idol, standing silent and watchful over the chamber. Valen had encountered a hot spring once before. In his homeland, the phenomenon was revered, a place of wonder and quiet reverence. The whaler believed that the breath of the great dragon, Yggdranis, seeped into the depths of the earth, warming the waters of a hidden lake that bubbled up to the surface as a sacred spring. People journeyed from across the land to bathe in its waters, said as it was to mend wounds, ease burdens and restore the spirit. Yet never had he seen such a marvel confined, walled in, concealed, and severed from the natural world. It would have troubled him deeply, but in that moment his unease was eclipsed by the presence of the woman before him and the power of the object she bore. She reclined in the steaming pool, the water lapping gently at her collarbones, her body half veiled by drifting vapour. Her features had an ageless beauty, youthful in form, yet touched by something far older, while her green eyes held a depth of knowing that could only be gained in the passing of many years. Around her neck hung a golden amulet, its setting cradling a ruby the colour of freshly spilled blood. It pulsed with a muted, restless energy, as though something within it strained against unseen confines, yearning to break free. Lamorna fixed Valen with a gaze that seemed to pierce the very core of him. He tried to look away, to shield himself from its intensity, but found himself unable to do so.
Long have I desired to meet you, Valen of Llanrys.
Her voice flowed, smooth and rich, like honey drawn slowly from the comb, each word lingering in the air.
We are the last keepers, you and I.
She moved her arms lazily through the water, sending soft ripples outwards, her eyes never leaving him. In that moment, an unseen presence resonated in Valen's mind, tempting him, luring him forward.
Come, will you not join me?
Valen hesitated. His head swam, and his pulse quickened. The pull was undeniable, a deep, aching urge to step forward, to sink into the water beside her. It clawed at him, insistent and intoxicating, threatening to overwhelm his senses. Yet somewhere beneath the haze, he recognized it for what it was. False. A deception. The insidious influence of the Eye of Seletha. In truth, his heart held no desire for any woman but Lena. The mere thought of betraying her twisted his stomach with revulsion. In that instant, he understood. This might be the most dangerous of all the Hellstones. A power that drove men mad with lust. No. The word came with effort, as though forced out against a powerful current. That is not something I desire. A faint, knowing smile touched the corners of Lamorna's lips, as though this answer pleased her. Reaching behind, she withdrew her hand from the water and slipped a ring onto one finger. At once, the suffocating allure shattered. The pressure in Valen's mind lifted, and relief flooded through him as he drew a long, steady breath.
Forgive me.
Lamorna spoke with quiet sincerity.
I needed to know the strength you possess.
So it was all a test?
Eadith cut in sharply, her anger evident. She too had struggled against the same invisible pull.
Yes, but it was no game.
This time, Lamorna's tone held no apology.
But...
Peace, Eadith.
Valen soothed.
Lamorna is not the enemy.
It was only then that Valen realized that he could no longer see Lamorna's aura, as if the ring she had put on were a shroud to both hers and the Hellstone's power. He considered for a moment, then his features fixed, with intent to take back control.
We shall leave you to dress,
he said, turning and walking towards the exit. When he reached the door, he paused and spoke without looking back.
But we have much to discuss.
The scene we have just heard was derived from the Oracle and Mythic Event Meaning rolls back in episode 74. The dice rolls were Valen and Eadith each making a save versus spell against the power of the Eye of Selethra. While Eadith passed with flying colours, Valen rolled exactly his target number. Lamorna would never have allowed Valen to enter the pool. As we have just heard, she wished to test him, and had he failed, this would have had implications for what she will do next. Lamorna's ring allows her to automatically cast my 5th level homebrew spell, Mantle of Quelling, 3 times per day. This is a powerful enchantment, which creates a dead zone of magic around the wearer, affecting all magical objects on their person. It confers an absolute magical stealth, whereby the wearer is completely shielded from all magical detection, including spells such as Reveal, ESP, or Clairvoyance. This is why Valen did not detect Lamorna when she watched him and Lena back in episode 74. While the mantle is active, the wearer is also immune to all spells of 3rd level or lower, with the exception of those that create a physical phenomenon, such as force or fire. However, the wearer cannot themselves cast any spells or use magic items while shielded. Any attempt to do so automatically fails. Lamorna uses the ring to suppress the Eye of Selethra when needed, for example in crowded places, though as we heard in episode 74, she allowed the Hellstone to affect the marketgoers in a display of the power she wields. With that explanation done, let's hear what she has to say. Chapter 75, Part 2, Day 67, Late Afternoon. Party status. The party status is unchanged. The afternoon sun bathed the secluded courtyard, reflecting on the worn cobblestones and lending them the illusion of beaten gold. Against one ivy-laced wall, an ancient apple tree rose from a patch of bare earth. Its gnarled boughs, laden with small, unripe fruit, hung over a narrow stone bench upon which Valen and Eadith sat. They waited in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. In the distance, the faint murmur of the town drifted on the wind. A blackbird alighted on a branch overhead. It cocked its head, one bright eye turned downward in fleeting curiosity. It sang a clear, lilting refrain that hung in the warm air. Then, with a sudden flutter of wings, it was gone. Valen's lips rose, almost imperceptibly. Lamorna appeared then, emerging from the bronze door of the bathhouse. She adjusted her dress about her generous hips, the fabric clinging to her still damp skin. The pair rose at her approach, the quiet between them shifting to something more expectant.
Fate is a curious thing, is it not?
Lamorna said, her voice touched by dry amusement, a knowing, almost private smile playing at the corners of her mouth.
Indeed it is,
Valen replied, though there was an urgency beneath his composure, his eyes searching her face.
My companions and I thought you to be on Innisnath. How came you to be here, in Varfell?
At that, a shadow passed across Lamorna's features, subtle but unmistakable, and she dipped her head with measured slowness.
Men came,
she answered simply.
The Brethren,
Valen murmured. The word carried a quiet bitterness. Lamorna gave a small, confirming nod.
I was able to escape, but my apprentice was not so fortunate. He still lives. I can feel it. But I fear that they will use him to find me.
Her hands, resting together at her stomach, tightened.
That is why I must find a way to destroy the Eye of Selethra.
so you are on your way to Penmelkin.
Valen surmised, leaning forward just slightly.
At first, yes.
Lamorna admitted, her voice quieter now.
Then I felt Demelza pass, just as I had with Amos. A sundering, sudden and cold. But more than that, the Eye of Selethra was in pain. I could sense it, like a wound echoing through me. And in that moment, I knew the Eye of Krevik had been destroyed, and with it, the rift closed.
She fell silent, letting the weight of it settle between them. It was Eadith who finally broke the stillness.
Then why not simply cast the Eye of Selethra into the ocean? No one would ever find it.
She suggested, though her tone was edged with uncertainty. Lamorna let out a short, ironic breath of laughter, her head shaking faintly.
I'm afraid it is not so simple.
She replied.
A keeper is bound to their hellstone, bound in ways beyond flesh or will. We cannot willingly relinquish it, nor allow it to be taken from us.
She turned her gaze fully to Valen.
Demelza only succeeded because she had your help.
Is that, then, why you lured us here?
Lamorna did not answer. She had no need to. The silent intent of her gaze betrayed the truth.
I know you go to Innismighton, and what it is you seek.
Valen's brow lifted in surprise. Talion had told the companions that Derwin was said to have wielded a weapon with the power to defeat the tyrant, Vortigern.
But Derwin's tomb was built upon something far older. Something that still lies buried beneath. The forge of Angolf.
Who or what is that?
Eadith asked, unfamiliar as she was with Morenish legend. It was Valen that answered, though his eyes never left Lamorna.
In my homeland, he is known as Govannon, the Eternal Smith.
He paused, revelation settling over him like a mantle.
And it is said that upon his anvil, anything can be broken. Perhaps even a hellstone.
Back in episode 74, I rolled for a prompt on the mythic event meaning chart for what it was at Innis Myton that Lamorna had knowledge of. That result was release elements. I also remembered that back in episode 70, Talion made a successful lore roll, which indicated that he knew something about how Derwin had defeated Vortigern, but I had not elaborated on what that was. So now that is established, the companions have 2 reasons to journey to Innis Myton, and I see no reason to delay further. Before I get into the journey, I need to establish a couple of things. Firstly, Eadith. Is she an NPC or a member of the party? Well, to be honest, in a solo game, it's kind of a moot point. She certainly has several reasons to stay with the companions. Not only does she have a childhood connection with Lena, but she has experienced the evil of the Hellstones firsthand, and she is likely to be motivated to prevent Reynard of Harburg from fulfilling his ambition. Chloe, who voices her, has kindly agreed to continue for as long as needed, so I guess that settles it. As for Lamorna, she will not travel with the companions. Prolonged proximity to the Eye of Selethra would be far too dangerous. Instead, she will follow a day behind. Finally, back in episode 72, we heard that Reynard of Harburg had used Cirque's blood on the Eye of Mordgren to track Lamorna. Fortunately for the companions, when he left Caer Morthal, Lamorna had not yet arrived in Varfell and was still south of the Dragonspire Mountains. This means that he will have taken the long route to reach the town. But make no bones about it, he is closer than any of them might think. But back to the matter at hand. The journey to Innis Myton is some 60 miles through the forest known as Cws Gwerth. While their horses will save their legs, through this terrain, the maximum distance they can travel in one day will be 30 miles. Right then, the companions will leave Varfell on the morning of day 71. Weather. A 17, a glorious summer's day. Losing direction. A 3. Despite the unfamiliar terrain, the companions managed to stay on course. While the BX rules state that there is 1 in 6 chance of successful foraging in forests, I'm not going to make a roll. Being a subject that I'm increasingly learning about, temperate Eurasian forests in summer are abundant with easily identifiable edible plants, nettles, chickweed, fat hen, and the like. All are highly nutritious and formed staple elements of the medieval diet. I believe that all my characters, perhaps with the exception of Lena, would be able to identify them. On that basis, I'm going to assume automatic success. Stumble upon? A 6, nothing. Wandering encounter. A 5, no encounter. So far so good. Day 72, weather. A 19, the fine weather continues. Losing direction. A 6, no problem there. Stumble upon? A 9, nothing. Wandering encounter. A 1, an encounter is indicated. I have a new woodland encounter table, which is more appropriate for how my setting has developed. It has 20 possible entries, and if you're interested, you can find it at legendofthebones.blogspot.com. To keep things fresh, if I roll anything the party has already encountered in this season, then I will roll again. A 4. That's something we've had before. Let's go again. A 20. Well, that's another special NPC. And I know exactly what this is. Chapter 75, Part 3, Day 71, Late Morning. Party status: Beric, 61 out of 61 hit points. Lena, 39 out of 39 hit points. Valen, 22 out of 22 hit points. Talion, 33 out of 33 hit points. Eadith, 16 out of 16 hit points. Spells available. Valen has memorized Charm Animal, Push, Shield, Soothe, Entangle, Revive, Clairvoyance, Ignite, Unseal, and Dragon's Breath. Talion has memorized Resolve, Poetic Prose, Pitch, Imbue, and Lullaby. Eadith has memorized Flame, Sleep, Camouflage, Knock, and Frostbite. Lena can pray for 3 first-level miracles, 3 second-level miracles, 2 third-level miracles, 2 fourth-level miracles, and 1 fifth-level miracle. Bright sunlight filtered through the canopy of oak, beech, and elm, casting shifting patterns of light as the companions' horses plodded steadily along the dirt track. The forest of Cusgworth was alive. Its name, Balin had said, meant greenwood, and with its abundant boughs and rich undergrowth, it more than lived up to its name. There was something resplendent about it, something that stirred in the companions a deep sense of wonder and quiet solace. Insects and butterflies darted between the betonies, foxgloves, and cow parsley, while the air rang with the song of dozens of birds, the summer migrations of pipit, chaffinch, and nightingale weaving into the chorus of resident species. Having repaired and resupplied, the companions had left Farfell the previous day, making swift progress through the fields and pastures surrounding the town, before slowing their pace upon entering the forest. While still in Farfell, Valen and Eadith had told the others about their encounter with Lamorna and the knowledge the mage had offered about what might be found at Innis Myton. They had all agreed that the risk of travelling with the Eye of Selethra was too great, though it was not without hesitation that they left Lamorna to travel alone, leaving her to the mercy of the road and whatever might be encountered upon it. Still, the first day of their journey had passed without incident, and after a peaceful night, the companions' hopes of reaching the shores of the Great Lake by nightfall were high. Beric led the way upon the largest of the mounts, its black coat glistening in the sunlight. Beside him rode Talion, the pair having struck an unlikely bond over a shared love of horses. Eadith and Lena followed behind, the 2 women recalling events of their shared childhood, while at the rear, Balin rode alone, lost in his own thoughts. The mage's eyes traced Lena's form, the curve of her back, the pale skin of her exposed neck, and her golden red hair gleaming like fire each time it caught the light. Despite his encounter with Lamorna and the spectre of their trials ahead, he had, for a time, found a brief measure of peace in Barfell. It had not been so for Lena. Her dreams were still haunted by the visions inflicted upon her in Permalkeen. Oft she woke, crying out in the night, her body slick with sweat, and in those dark hours she reached for him. He would hold her close, whispering words of comfort, and as they lay in each other's arms, they spoke of the future, of hopes and dreams, their wish for a life together, and a binding of hands. They would preach harmony between the pagan and the Nonarian. He had meant it. Yet something now tugged at him. The chains that bound him to the Eye of Mordgren. He had begun to feel it again. The faintest of pulls. The stirring of the shadow that had consumed his years as Amos's apprentice. Like black tendrils, coiling once more around his heart. Only in Lena's arms was the darkness held at bay, her soul shielding his with a mantle of love. Ahead of him, the 2 women giggled, and Lena turned in the saddle. Her face shone, and in that moment, he thought how beautiful she was. His lips parted in return, as she mouthed words that filled him with quiet joy. Soon they came to a clearing, through which a small river ran. A ring of short stones straddled the water, marking it as a place of ancient significance. Perhaps because it was shallow enough to form a natural ford. The companions decided to stop, resting the horses and allowing them to drink, while they themselves stretched their saddle-weary limbs. They moved into the tree line in search of forage, gathering nettles, wood sorrel and mushrooms, while Talion kept an arrow nocked, wary of wild boar or something worse. It was a wise precaution, for suddenly there was a rustle of movement, and a heartbeat later, a dozen red deer burst from the undergrowth, nearly knocking Eadith from her feet as she dove clear of their path. They were led by a magnificent stag, its powerful body leaping with effortless grace through the ground flora. Talion tracked a hind with his bow, the promise of venison steadying his aim. He loosed, and the arrow sped towards its mark. The stag pivoted, and the air seemed to shudder as it released a deafening bellow. The arrow shaft splintered mid-flight, the iron head falling harmlessly to the ground. The hinds scattered, vanishing into the trees, leaving only the stag standing before the stunned companions. Then, the beast reared up upon its hind legs, its great body beginning to change. Fur sloughed away as cloven hooves receded, reshaping into arms and hands. A sudden gust of wind rose about it, tearing leaves from the surrounding branches and weaving them into a long cloak of verdant green that settled across newly formed shoulders. The creature that stood before them was neither man nor beast. Its form was largely human, strong, muscular, and bare, save for fur along its lower body. Long red-brown hair fell in thick tresses past its shoulders. Its ears were large, deer-like, and from its head rose the great antlers of a stag. It regarded them, imposing yet serene, with calm, unblinking eyes of a deer. "It's you!" Talion exclaimed, his voice threaded with disbelief. "Idin Koniog," the horned man. Thank you for listening to Legend of the Bones. I hope you've enjoyed the show. If you like what you've heard, then please consider rating and reviewing the show in your podcatcher of choice. Not only do I love seeing the feedback, but it really does help the show to reach new listeners. As always, where would I be without my amazing cast of voice talent? A newcomer to the show, playing Lamorna, is Samantha Jennings. Samantha is a cast member of Realm of Roles, a UK-based actual play RPG podcast. Also returning to the show, playing the role of Eadith, is Chloe Elliott. Chloe is an actor, singer, composer and content creator, as well as being a cast member of A Deck of Many Aces, an actual play D&D podcast. My sincere thanks to both Samantha and Chloe. Your contributions have really elevated this episode. I'll put their respective links in the show notes. You can also help by liking or reposting new episode announcements, or by recommending the show online or to a friend. You really can't beat the power of word of mouth. Alternatively, if you would like to show your appreciation by buying me a metaphorical cup of tea, then I have a Ko-fi page at ko-fi.com/Legend of the Bones. Any donations will go towards the show's running costs. While I'm here, be sure to check out SoloRoleplayer'sNetwork.com, where you can find a curated list of the very best solo RPG audio dramas out there. Finally, I'd love to know what you think of the show, and I do respond to every message I receive. So with that in mind, you can contact me on X at LegendBones, Blue Sky at LegendBones, Mastodon at LegendBones at TTRPG-hangout.social, Instagram at LegendOfTheBones, email at legendofthebones@gmail.com, or go to legendofthebones.blogspot.com for show notes, house rules, character profiles, art, maps and more. Join me next time to find out what awaits our adventurers as their bones decide their fate. None shall escape the destiny of bone.
Are you looking for a great listen? Fancy stepping into a world where the heroes are forged in the fires of fate and where every decision could result in glory or ruin? Then welcome to Realm of Roles, the home of beautifully produced RPG fantasy adventure podcasts. Join our dynamic and experienced cast of creative dungeon masters and players as they bring colourful heroes with secrets, villains with motives, and allies with agendas to life, all wrapped in thrilling, inspiring and immersive settings, where fate can be a friend or foe, and destiny can take a dark turn or an unexpected twist in the blink of an arcane eye. Experience the rush of intense combat, the highs and lows of emotion, and let's not forget that the only thing more unpredictable than the plot is the roll of the dice. Pick up the links to our podcast streaming and socials, latest news and a showcase of trailers at realmofrolls.co.uk.